This is Matthew McConaughey.
Natalie Portman.
James Patterson.
Michael Ian Black.
And you are listening to
Five Questions
with Dan
Schawbel.
David, welcome to Five Questions.
Thank you.
Well, so happy to have you here. Can you share some of your early influences that shaped your interest in writing and drama?
Yes, my earliest influences were two things which I realized at about age 15 and 16 were the same thing. One of them was, actually three things. One of them was Pinter, the plays of Pinter, because he very, very early on wrote some things called review sketches and A Night Out, which were about 7 to 10 minute long comito serio pieces. And I recognized them because as a kid, I used to work at Second City in Chicago, not on stage, but as a busboy. And I saw the guys and the women doing all these serio-comedic sketches night after night. And I was very impressed by them. I realized Pinter was doing the same thing. And then I read Chekhov. And I realized that Chekhov was doing the same thing, that his plays actually don't have a plot. They have a setting, and they're connected sentimentally, and we can accept that these are people in life, and isn't life just like that? But they're sad and funny at the same time. So those were my earliest influences. Prior to that, I'd been exposed to Eugene O'Neill, and I just didn't understand it, and everything that was passing for the American theater at that time bored me to tears. But then I discovered this new thing, and I said, well, hell, I love that. I'm going to try to do that. So I did.
Yeah, and that's how you stood out. But I think what I noticed, and I've interviewed over 3,000 successful people at this point, it cut across all industries, and early exposure, just like you had to the arts, let's say, can make a huge difference in terms of what you like. You decide what you like, what you don't like, how to kind of stand out. And that can really kind of surface as you continue to pursue a career.
I think so. It also matters what you're looking at. The Wright brothers were a couple of bicycle mechanics, and people for a long time, and really up around the time that they actually started having success, were trying to create powered flight. And the problem with powered flight was you couldn't get an engine small enough to power the plane. So this started to change with steam. Steam came in with locomotives by 1830, and by 1890, 1895, there were sufficient steam engines that people thought they could perhaps power a plane. And then they went to the internal combustion engine, which offered a lot of a possibility. So everyone was looking at the internal combustion engine, but the Wright brothers were looking at birds. And that's how they invented the airplane.
What motivated your transition from studying acting to becoming a playwright, and how did this shift impact your creative process?
Well, I couldn't act, but I loved the theater, and that's all where the pretty girls were. So on both of those counts, I just wasn't leaving. So I decided if I want to be where the pretty girls are, where all the fun is, and doing something that I love, what is it about the theater that I love that I can do? And what I realized the very thing which debarred me from being an actor perhaps would empower me to become a director, and that was taking an overview of the entire process. Because when an actor does that, the performance is no good. They don't have to take an overview. They just have to get up there and gut it out and have the courage and talent to say the stupid fucking words. So those were the two things which influenced me.
Well, it's good. It's good self-awareness too, to realize what you like to do and
Yeah.
kind of pay attention to that and lean in to that type of career, knowing that, trying to do both would be very challenging, if not impossible, or not smart to do in the first place, like you just mentioned.
Indeed. What else can I tell you?
How is being fired from dozens of movies a blessing in disguise, and what do you learn from the experiences?
Well, getting fired from movies is not really a blessing in disguise. It was failing in the theater is essential for learning how to write a play, because it's not getting fired. It's getting dismissed, which is something very different indeed. You get fired by someone who's a superior, and you get fired for a lot of reasons. But if you're unappreciated by the audience, it means you did something they didn't appreciate. They have an absolute right to do, or they didn't understand, and they have an absolute right. It's not their point. It's not their job to understand. It's your job to entertain them. And if you can't entertain them, if they lose their concentration, or they wander away, or they go to sleep, you've just failed. So that's where you learn. Wait a second, I've made a mistake here. What's the mistake, and how do I fix it next time? So that's where you learn to write a play, and it's also where you learn to write a movie. And if you can't sit with an audience and watch what they're responding to, you can't learn. So most of the people who come into they call it the industry now, are on an industrial model, which is to say they're underlings working for bureaucrats. That's what an industry is. But they aren't actually exposed to the experience of watching the people who are the actual recipients of their work, which is the audience.
And knowing your audience is very important for crafting something that's going to emotionally connect.
Well, you don't have to actually know the audience, because the audiences are all alike. They all want to hear it. They all want to hear a story. You don't craft a dramatist doesn't actually craft his work for that audience. He crafts his work for an audience, right? Which they're all the same. They all want to hear a story. That's all.
And then it's how you tell that story in an entertaining way.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you can't say, wait a second, let me explain something to you, which most movies do and most plays do now. They stop and say, let me tell you why I'm telling you all this. Or they narrate. You know, the reason I'm telling you this is when I was the head of gynecology at the other hospital that happened before this movie, everybody goes to sleep, right? The audience. So if you're in a theater watching your play or movie, you realize that's where they went to sleep. Oops. But if you're writing for a superior, the superior says, "Oh, good, for this will help them understand." Right?
Absolutely. And a lot of people complain that like making a movie, making anything from an art standpoint is very, very difficult. What do you think are the biggest challenges of making a film, and how did you overcome them?
Biggest challenges in making a film are putting up with the idiots who call themselves producers and call themselves studio executives and agents and writers, because these people are all middle. They don't do anything. It's like a sea captain. You're the sea captain, and you're taking advice from the barnacles. You know, so that's the challenge. Everything else was high. Everything else was and is a joy. It's wonderful. It's, you know, doing the work by yourself and getting to do it again with the cast and getting to do it again with the editor and doing it for the audience. It's just marvelous. It's the most fun in the world.
It's the corporate types that are challenging, the barnacles.
Yeah, they're very challenging, but that's the way that the business is, especially in movie business. And it was always like that, but it's gotten vastly more like that with the death of the studio system, the death of the bricks and mortar theaters. But okay, that's life is like that. I could have been the world's greatest railroad conductor, but when the railroads failed, what am I going to do? Go wee all the way home?
And what's your best piece of career advice?
My best career advice is to stop waiting. If you want to go into the theater, do it, because you have two choices. You can try to go to an acting school or go to a film prep, which is absolute waste of time. It's just a fraud. You're not going to learn anything. Or you can say, you know what? Hell, I got a garage. I'll put it on in the garage, just like Judy Garland did, and just like I did, just like Second City did, and just like Chekhov did. I'll put it on in the garage. See if people come. Oh, if they come, maybe you put it on in a bigger garage. So if one really loves being in the theater, do what you love. Put on a stupid fucking play rather than going around looking for people who are going to accept you. Because in a very, very long career, if you're keeping your eyes open, you can see there's always somebody that you wish to encounter who's going to say, I understand you. I'm going to support you. I'm going to put everything I have in back of your work. But you're never going to meet that person. But what you have to do is become that person, period. So that's how you do a play. And it's actually the same way you do a movie, because the same device that we're using right now, a movie that you can make on this device is really not in any way inferior to a movie you can make for $150 million and a huge cast and blah, blah, blah. It's just not. There's no magic to it. There's a camera, there's actors, and there's an idea. So if you got a camera, everyone has one called an iPhone,
Yep.
and you have an idea, get a couple of actors and make a movie, right? See you put it out, download it, and see if anybody likes it. So if you do that for 4 years, and you're actually good at it, and you get better at it, you're probably going to find an audience. But if you go to film school for 4 years and then dress up and audition and try to get into other people's offices, you do that for 4 years. Your 4 years in school have accomplished nothing other than to make you stupid. And you may spend the rest of your life trying to get some fucking idiot to say, oh, I think you have talent. Please go to bed with me.
Yeah, it's the difference between choosing yourself or just waiting and hoping something works out. Like, it's making your own luck by, actually putting something out there to see if you're good or not, and then learning from that experience. I think that's extremely valuable. And that cuts across everything. You could say that for musicians too.
Absolutely true. Because if you think about it, why should someone believe in you more than you believe in yourself?
Exactly. And actually, if you believe in yourself, people are more likely to believe in you as well.
Of course. And the other thing is that young people, you're so powerful. You got limitless energy, and you like hanging out with each other. So, instead of, hanging out with each other, in addition to hanging out with each other and getting stoned and getting sexually transmitted diseases, why don't you actually make a movie too?
And typically, when you're younger, you have fewer responsibilities. Not in all cases, but in many cases. I mean, that's why people job hop more often when they're young.
That's absolutely true. And the other thing is, if you start making movies on your iPhone, you're going to learn. So if someone says, yeah, I like that movie you make. You want to try a bigger movie? Here's a movie with like they'll give you $1 million to make your movie if that's what you need. The technology may be a little bit different, but everything else is the same. Where do I put the camera? What am I taking a picture of? How do I cut the thing? How do I talk to the actors? How do they talk to me? Thank you. This is just the same. I just made a movie. At the time of my life, we shot it in 5 days. There was no difference in that movie. And had I spent $100 million and shot it in 3 months, no difference.
Well, that's great advice. And thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome, and it's great talk. It's great talking to you. And to all you young people over there, God bless you. There's a lot of adventure out there.